welcome. We'll start in a couple of minutes. My name is Odeviz Soto. I'm the Director of Admissions here at HDS, and I'm joined by some wonderful students that have volunteered their time with us to share about their experience as first-gen students. We'll just wait a couple of minutes as people trickle in. So go ahead and get a sip of water or grab something to eat. If you like to, we'll be with you in a couple minutes. I'll turn my video off. I'll be right back. Again, welcome to those of you who are joining us from near and far. We'll be with you very soon. So settle in. We're about to start our Navigating HDS as a first-gen student panel. So we'll be with you very soon. Okay, well, it's 5:03 by my count, so we'll jump right in. Again, my name is Odeviz Soto. I'm the Director of Admissions here at HDS. It's an immense privilege to be here. Thank you for all of you who are joining us from near and far for our Navigating HDS as a first-gen student session. Today, the way we'll structure this is that I'll talk for about 10 to 12 minutes, quite briefly, to give you an overview of the whole school and the degree programs and what we offer. And then we'll jump to the stars of the session, which are our students. We have a couple questions prepared for them. And I'm hoping that at the end, when we have a Q&A session, you please feel free to ask them questions. We won't respond to them via chat as the session is going on. That way, for those of you who might be seeing this in a recorded format later on via open house or any other context, you can see the whole response. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my camera off right now, and I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit more about HDS. So we'll stop my video. And so again, this is beautiful picture of our newly renovated Swartz Hall. Welcome to our Navigating HDS as a first-gen student panel. In case you just joined us and couldn't see me, this is what I look like. Again, Odeviz Soto, welcome. And let me just give you an overview of HDS. So founded in 1816, HDS, Harvard Divinity School, it's the first divinity school in the United States. It's a non-sectarian or non-religiously affiliated school of religions and the study of religious and theological studies. And its purpose is to educate students both in the academic study of religion and in preparation for leadership in religious, governmental, and a wide range of service organizations. With more than 35 faith traditions represented in the student body, including those, of course, who are not religiously affiliated, and over 500 recurring worship services, HDS is also the most religiously pluralistic divinity school in the world. I can tell you that applicants often wonder what career paths are available to students with a religious graduate degree. I know that that's a question that I often got from my family when I was a student here. I happen to be a Master Divinity graduate from 2011. I can tell you that our degree programs lead to infinite pathways with alumnics in every field and industry who value ethical leadership, religious literacy, and real service-oriented, mission-driven work. Graduates often describe developing skills such as deep listening, ethical reasoning, bridging divides successfully, and navigating difficult conversations as part of their experience. Now, you might be wondering, who's at HDS? What we're giving you here is a snapshot of the incoming class that just joined us a couple months ago. This is, you'll see that we have 96 MTS students. That's the Master of Theological Studies. That's our most popular program. We have 52 Master of Divinity students, 12 Master of Religion and Public Life students. That's our new program. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. 4 special students and 2 Master of Theology students. Within the incoming class, 55% identify as female, 34% as male, and 7% identify as non-binary. The average age is 28, and the age range of the students enrolled goes all the way from 21 through 68. HDS students, again, as I mentioned earlier, they reported over 45 different religious affiliations. And the number I'm really sort of most impressed by is that we have 121 colleges and universities represented in the incoming class, which means we have students coming in from a diverse array of institutions and academic training, and that's very exciting. Now, in terms of the degree programs, we have 4. There's the 2-year Master of Theological Studies program, or affectionately known as the MTS. It offers a broad study in religion with opportunities to concentrate in one of 18 areas of focus. Students enroll to prepare for a doctoral program in religion or related discipline, or to approach another field or profession such as law, journalism, public policy, education, arts, medicine, really from a perspective enriched by theological study. The 3-year Master of Divinity program, or the MDiv, is really for 21st century spiritual leaders. Students learn the arts of ministry, broadly conceived in ministry with a big M, including preaching, pastoral care, and community organizing. And this program helps students link theory and practice with field work placements in settings around the globe. We also have the Master Theology program, or the THM. This sounds very similar, but it's actually very different from the MTS. This is a 1-year program for applicants who already hold an MDiv. And it's really designed to allow students to explore a topic in great depth, or to delve into a new topic that impacts their ministry, whatever that might look like. And then last but not least, as I mentioned, we have our new Master of Religion and Public Life, our MRPL program. It was just recently launched a couple months ago. We have our incoming class, our inaugural cohort here with us on campus. And it's really an incredible program that enables experienced professionals in diverse fields to develop a deep understanding of the complex role that religion plays in their work. Now, through coursework, a shared seminar, and with other professionals, and a final project that deepens understanding of religion within their fields, these leaders develop the religious literacy to effectively address critical challenges facing the world today. So again, these are 4 degree programs, and they're designed for all sorts of different populations and for different purposes. Now, of course, all of this is possible only because of our incredible faculty. HDS's faculty of divinity are among the most distinguished scholars of religion and practitioners of ministry in the world. We have over 80 different faculty and guest lecturers teaching more than 200 courses every year. And they really include some of the world's top scholars of Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, and many other traditions. As you can see in the slide, 54% of our faculty are tenured women, and more than 1/3 specialize in non-Christian traditions. In addition to the 200 courses that are offered at HDS, students also have access to courses across the entire university, as well as throughout the Boston Theological Interreligious Consortium. This is known as the BTI. This is a consortium of 10 theological institutions of higher ed in the Boston area, and it offers students easy cross-registration, as well as a range of other resources across institutions. Something else I'll add is that for MDiv and MTS students, 50% of your coursework can be completed outside of HDS. So you can really customize your HDS experience to create a unique path through the program, and honestly, just get the preparation you need for your goals. So if none of the thousands of courses available to you fit the bill, whether at HDS, at Harvard writ large, or within the BTI, of course, you can also work directly with HDS faculty to do an independent study. So it's pretty safe to say that no two HDS students have the same transcript. Now, again, we talked about degree programs, faculty. Let's talk about students. And of course, you're going to hear about students, from students and about students' lives very soon. But this is just the writ large, some of the things I want you to be aware of. I can tell you that the Office of Student Life supports over 35 different student organizations each year. And it's easy to start your own if there's something that doesn't exist that you think should. Some examples of student orgs are Queer Rights, Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, the HDS Garden Group, and the Third Chapter. This is a group for students over 50 years old. These student organizations host over 60 student-led events each year, in addition to the over 500 recurring events that I had mentioned earlier. And some of these include weekly worship services hosted by faith-based student organizations. There are also 2 weekly events at HDS that you should be aware of. That's noon service on Wednesdays and community tea on Tuesdays. And students have access to events and organizations across the whole university as well, of course. Now, we have usually a lot of questions about aid, need-based versus merit, and we've done a great event on this, which I encourage you to attend if you have a chance to do so. But again, writ large, these are the main things I want you to walk away knowing. So we offer generous institutional grant aid for students enrolling in the Master of Divinity or the Master of Theological Studies program. Approximately 90% of students in the MDiv and MTS programs receive institutional grant aid, the majority which is actually need-based grant aid. Now, HDS does have a small pool of merit aid that's awarded based on the overall strength of the application. We really, really strongly encourage everyone to submit a financial aid application so you can be considered for need-based aid. Our baseline need-based aid package is a 75% tuition grant. So as you're planning for graduate school and thinking about your budget, that's a good number to use. For folks with more need, we also offer higher packages that cover 100% of tuition, and some even come with a living stipend. Merit awards cover 100% of tuition and include a living stipend as well. Okay, nuts and bolts in terms of I've given you all this information. How do you apply? Here's the timeline. You can see for yourself that we've been open. Our application has been open for about a month and a half. We have the deadline on January 6th. Something I'd like to draw your attention to is that for the first time, we're introducing virtual interviews, which will be extended by invitation to a subset of the applicant pool in late January, early February, more or less. And all admissions decisions will be released in mid-March. So if you're admitted, you'll find out your financial aid package within 24 hours of receiving your admissions decision. So again, submit your financial aid application as well. And again, the application components are pretty self-explanatory, but we also have some other great sessions that go into details for these components as well. Now, stay connected. You joined us today. There are many other events that we have done. And so you can go back and check those out. There are many other events that we will be doing. I like to put a plug in for our virtual open house happening this Tuesday, November 9th. It's a great opportunity to meet other students, a lot of staff, a lot of faculty, and just really get a feel for what we're like. We think we're really friendly and open, and really hope you have an opportunity to meet us and get a sense of our community as well. So I will go ahead and quickly introduce our panelists for a second, and very soon I'm going to ask them to turn their cameras on. But again, today we are so excited. We have Ryan Constant, who's an MDiv 2000 class of 24, Odd Jenkins, another MDiv of the class of 24, Aubrey Limones, an MTS, the class of 23, and Tracy Palmer, MDiv class of 24. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now. And panelists, will you go ahead and come online? I will also turn my video on. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Hello.
Oh, hello. So welcome. Again, thank you for joining us to our Navigating HDS as a first-gen student panel. It'd be great if you could just go around and just so you know, for those of you who are joining us, we will go ahead and ask the panelists 3 questions. But if any questions come up, please let me know, or we can chat it and we'll answer it later. I will also say that we have another panelist, Ryan, who for some reason is having trouble. We can't turn his camera on our end or on his end, but he will definitely jump in and share his thoughts whenever the time comes. Thank you, Ryan.
No problem.
So actually, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and briefly introduce yourself, since you're
Absolutely. Yes,
amazing.
I definitely apologize that I'm not able to see myself and you guys as well. But yeah, so I just first want to say thank you all for coming out. I highly commend you for applying and sort of considering HDS. Given the precarity and living in the pandemic right now, it definitely takes a lot of courage to apply, and it really speaks to that. So when I was applying to HDS, I had a multiplicity of feelings, regarding the imposter syndrome, the prestige of Harvard, and sort of what the name entails, and also in terms of fit. So in undergrad, I was a pre-health student, so I didn't know whether this was sort of the place that would foster that kind of development that I would need to become a ethical doctor in the future. But I'm so glad that I listened to my faith-based physician mentor, who alerted me to the idea of getting an MDiv degree. And so he also decided to write me a recommendation letter. And, actually being here has just been an awesome experience with regard to the first-gen identity that I have. So in undergrad, and even now, I'm really involved in this program called QuestBridge, which, for those of you that don't know, it's a national scholarship program for students that connects them to top universities with scholarships. And so I really care about fostering communities from the low income and first gen background. And whether it's been the financial aid staff, the admissions office, professors, first gen allies, I've really felt a sense of community here that has been fostered, where people really want to know you by name and by story. So I also feel like being a first gen at Harvard really alleviates the pressure, the underlying pressure to sort of conform to how everyone else is and sort of embrace what makes you you. So I could say through an ancillary program through Harvard that is designed to match low-income graduates with internships, I've been matched through the Aspiring Minds program and got to meet already, just in my first semester, like professors from the business school, and gain mentorship. And it's just been awesome. And then really, I would say that being first gen is quite a luxury, and it takes a deliberation, a gratitude that is intentional, to get the most out of your experience here. And so I encourage you to do that.
Thank you, Ryan. And actually, you went ahead and actually, in many ways, answered the first question, which was in terms of what's been positive about the first gen experience. So thank you for that. Tracy, go ahead and introduce yourself, and might as well answer this first question again, which will be posed for everyone. What has been positive about being first gen at HDS.
Sure, great, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy. I'm a first year MDiv. I'm an attorney. I was practicing for the past 10 years and left the practice of law to come to HDS. And so I'm fairly, I guess, what you'd call a mid-career student too, which seems a little hard to believe, but I guess I qualify as that. I'm interested in chaplaincy, interfaith chaplaincy in the hospital and hospice settings. I'm generally interested in death, illness, and dying, and I'm a Buddhist practicing in the Tibetan tradition. And what I would say has been positive about being a first gen at HDS is that HDS, in my experience so far, is a place where it really invites you and in some ways provokes you to consider deeply your identities, those that maybe are closely held and those that are not so closely held, and consider them in new ways. Just there's something about this environment and the incredibly diverse student body and the different paths that everyone's on that cultivates a real spirit of self-inquiry. So for me, I never thought about my identity as a first gen student really until I came to HDS. And it gave me the opportunity to think about why that might be and what's at play there, the sort of different kinds of power dynamics and environments I was in that either invited or disallowed that kind of consideration or that kind of identity. So that's been a positive thing for me, has been the opportunity to dig into what it means to be a first gen student for myself and to consider and interrogate that identity and how it plays a role in my life and in my studies. So.
Thank you, Tracy. Albert.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. My name is Albert, and I'm a first year MTS student. I come from Austin, Texas, where I did my undergrad at St. Edward's University, which is a small liberal arts college. But I was born in Mexico, and at the age of like 3 years old, my family moved to Texas. So being a borderlands identity has really kind of shaped my approach to academia and things like that, which I was never really aware of until starting to apply to graduate school. So yeah, I think it's great that all of y'all are considering HDS. And so I would say one of the positive things for me has been, and you might have heard it already, when considering HDS, but just how welcoming it is. And it really is the case, being first generation, being, underrepresented, like minority identity, being borderlands, you kind of go into these institutions that, are prestigious with a lot of intimidation, at least I did. But at HDS, people were very welcoming, not only classmates and just how diverse classmates are. People come from all sorts of backgrounds that you kind of just are amazed at, like the things that your classmates have been through, where they're coming from, their background. For example, Tracy, being an attorney and like working in law and things like that. So, you hear all these sorts of things. And so it's very motivating. And it's welcoming in a sense, because I think it allows you to kind of position yourself at HDS and figure out what you are able to bring to the table, which is ultimately a totally different thing. And I would add that, classmates are influenced by that. People want to hear about you. They want to learn. You want to hear about them. But I would even say that professors are this way as well. They're ready to learn from you. And I think that's been such a positive thing for me, is how welcoming professors are and how ready to engage with you in subjects, and just really pick apart, some of the themes that we're learning and studying, and just have it be, a collaborative thing. I think that's been definitely one of the most positive things.
Thank you, Albert. And Odd.
Thank you all. It's really fun to hear everyone's answers. And thank you to everyone for being here and for creating this opportunity for us to share some space together. I think being a first generation college student is really, it's like, it's a wild world trying to figure out how college works. It was for me anyways. It was wild trying to figure out how it all works. So I really appreciate that HDS is prioritizing, trying to kind of pull the veil back a little bit on some of these experiences. I am a first generation Korean American, first generation low income college student. That informs a lot of my orientation to this. As a space that I'm in. I grew up in a town of a couple hundred people in very rural Iowa, but I've spent my career up until now living in Southeast Asia, working in cultural exchange between the US and Asia. What has been positive regarding my first generation identity at HTS? I think, just to echo a lot of what Albert was saying, I think that the community of students is really, it's just interesting, and people are really interesting and interested in your experience and others' experiences, and in learning outside of what they've seen or done before. And I think that's really special. It's not something that you find everywhere you go. And so being in a group of people that is so ready to be wrong, I think, about, or right, or like affirmed or wrong about the things that they know, I think is really special. And it's not like every student you would meet at HDS is a first generation college student, right? So it's not like we all share that, but like, even if you don't share that identity with people, I feel like I've been able to have experiences and conversations with people where we're discussing some of those, different points of each other's lives, but finding ways in which they've led us to similar questions or different questions, but finding ways in which there's connections and synergy between them. And really those interpersonal connections and that synergy is what's propelling my work as a student here. And so that's been really special to be able to bring that identity and the questions that I have here and put them into conversation with everyone else, because people are trying to talk and trying to get to know each other. And then the other thing I would say is that just the opportunity to be here is a big privilege. And for a lot of, I don't know, for a lot of people that are first generation, I think it wasn't a given that I would go to undergrad. It certainly is not a given that I would end up going to grad school. And I think coming here with that perspective and knowing that and feeling so grateful for it can sometimes be a burden, which we can talk about a little later, but it also is such a gift. It's a perspective that I don't take for granted. And just knowing like how many people helped me get here, I think it's kept me really grounded as a first generation student.
Thank you, Odd. Tracy, I'll start with you for the next question. So actually it's a great segue to what Odd just mentioned. What has been challenging about being, your first gen identity at HDS?
So what I think has been challenging, but for me, I'm not framing challenging in like a negative way. I think challenging to me as a Buddhist, I'm always taking what is challenging or difficult as an opportunity for practice and reflection. And so I think that I'll frame what I'm going to say in that I think this has been an invitation to reflect for me. But I think something that can be challenging is, as a first-gen student, you or your family or your community might think of Harvard as, a really significant achievement and attainment and sort of an unquestioned good. And it is a huge privilege to be here. And Harvard has many things to offer, and that's why we're here. However, there are many folks who have a complicated relationship with Harvard as an institution. And I think that you will find among your fellow students, should you come here, that a lot of folks hold that tension with Harvard, even as they've chosen to be here, and obviously see the benefit. And someone can have an even antagonistic relationship with Harvard as an institution. And there are a lot of good and interesting reasons for why we should be challenging the institutions broadly, and the institutions that we're a part of specifically. I really believe that it's important to look closely at that to which you hold dear in all aspects of our lives. So I think that and these aren't mutually exclusive. You could be a first-gen student and think it's a privilege and also have a complex relationship with Harvard as an institution. And I think HDS is a great place to come and hold those kinds of tensions, right? It's a both and, it's not an either or type of a place. And that's a great thing about HDS. We're really all deliberately moving toward and wading into the complex and the difficult and the sticky, and we're like getting into it. We're not avoiding those hard conversations or those seeming contradictions. We're getting right into the center of them and willing to sit down and have that dialogue with ourselves and with the institution. So I'd say though that if you've never considered that maybe Harvard is a place that someone might have a negative idea about, that might take you aback. I certainly had a moment when I went during, I think it was orientation, where I was like, oh, okay, there's going to be some very different views here about Harvard. And I think there's, again, I think it's partly because the people at HDS are asking so many interesting and tough questions about the world and about ourselves. And I think it's also about the moment in which we find ourselves culturally, politically right now in the US and the world more broadly. So I don't know if it's exclusive, to HDS necessarily, but this is a place where there's not a fear to wade into that set of questions. So it's a good thing to know, though, so that you don't get caught off guard, and then you can enter into that dialogue and just kind of bring that curiosity with you. And it's part of, everything that's happening here, all the big questions and not so much the answers, but that's part of HDS.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Albert.
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest challenges for me that I've been feeling, I think it's getting a little better now, but first starting out for sure, was the kind of biases and notions that you have of of something like Harvard and like graduate school, specifically being a first generation student. You kind of go into graduate school, I said, I use the word already, but like somewhat of an intimidation. And for me, that intimidation was some of the professors, because they have a crazy cool background. They have, they're very interesting in their research, and some of them, are doing research in areas that you're very interested in, and that you're, trying to pursue. So there is like a slight intimidation there that I was feeling. And so I noticed that I would be very nervous to talk to them and to like speak up in class. And I'd be very nervous to like weigh in into like a conversation, just because it's like, it's someone that you kind of admire and you think are seem like very interesting people. So that was a challenge for me. But I do think that's getting better, especially because at least my professors, there's no reason why I should be intimidated by them. They're very welcoming, and they want to, engage, that they want you to like come to their office hours and just talk to them about whatever they have on their wall, or like whatever book that is like on their shelf. So they're super friendly, but I think it's, like I said, it's these biases and notions that we come into a place like Harvard, being first gen, being that, we're not used to these kinds of environments. So it's like, yeah, it's just our own thing that we have to kind of learn to navigate our own selves, because, it's not, the school is doing everything opposite to that, where instead they're like being very inviting. That, and I think Tracy touched up on it a little bit, being first gen, having the privilege and the honor to be at a place like Harvard, in terms of like family and friends that don't come from academic background. So I think one of the challenges for me is, just trying to actually do a very good job, not just for myself, not just for my professors, but also for the people that I feel like I'm representing back home or wherever it may be. So I think I think it's really cool, but I think it kind of adds to like a slight bit of like burden, which also shouldn't be the case, because family and friends are just stoked that you are, that you're pursuing your dreams and doing what you want to do. But yeah, so it's kind of these things that you like that one battles with within oneself. I think that's mostly what's been challenging for me as first gen.
Thank you, Albert. Odds.
I think there's three things that kind of stand out to me about what's been challenging. I think alluding to what I mentioned earlier, kind of like I feel like it's very clear to me that this is one path that I didn't expect in my life. Like, I'm like, wow, what a gift it is to be here. On the other hand, I think that can be an immense pressure to kind of like make it worth it, like to take time out of working and be like, this is my one chance to go to grad school. And I think that I have friends and peers where like maybe their life situation is such that they could do multiple degrees and be like, it's cool. And I think that's amazing, but like, that's not really my orientation to finance and to resource like that. So I think sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming to be like, how am I going to like make this count? And I think that that's just something kind of like Albert was saying, that's just something you have to deal with, I think. I'm not sure if I have a like clean answer for how to get out of that mindset. But something that I have been thinking about that's a kind of related challenge is sometimes I can feel inadequate about what I don't know about like how to navigate this system and like how to like, I think it's a joke amongst like young people, like what even is networking, which, it's just like, I don't know how to do some of those like things. And I can feel kind of inadequate about it, but I'm kind of just being like, you know what, it's the system. Like, this is like the system that we are in. It's a broken system, the education, the finance, the economics of the country. And I'm taking that burden off myself. And I'm just being like, you know what, I have to make it worth it for myself, but I also need to learn when to ask for help and when to give myself grace for not knowing about like how things work. And also recognizing that like no one knows like how everything works in this situation. Even people that maybe like their parents went to Harvard or something, they don't know how everything works either. So just trying to like kind of get rid of some of that mental weight and some of the, just the inadequacy that you can take on for yourself that really it's not yours to carry. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And then the last challenge I've been thinking about is just, this is an expensive place to live. So the money, I'm out here working real hard for the money, and it is a gift. My job is a gift because it is allowing me to stay very grounded in communities that I really care about elsewhere. However, it takes a lot of time and a lot of mental energy. And sometimes I can be like, wow, if I didn't have to work, how much more time would I have for my Arabic homework or my reading for this? But I also think that reframing it for myself is really important because it's not a reality for me not to work. So like, how can I bring my work into my school? Like, how can I integrate them in a way that feels generative and opens up new doors for my academics instead of seeing them as separate spheres? Because for me, at least, they feel like they can be integrated. That's just like the work that I'm doing to bring them together. But the reality also is that having a job while being in school is hard. And I don't think there's a way around that.
Thank you, Odds. Here. Ryan, what has been challenging?
Yeah, everything was definitely well said. I echo what Tracy was talking about, sort of the internal juxtaposition of, dreaming big and knowing that you're, at Harvard and sort of, everything that comes with that, but also, sort of trying to make the most of it while just accepting who you are in being here. And so I'm sure many of the panelists can relate. It's like when you come from a place of having achieved so many insurmountable odds and overcome so many things in your life and, defied statistics, when you've achieved so much, you develop this proclivity to overperform at times and overcorrect in terms of the way you dress, the way you code switch, the way that you navigate these conversations with students, tough conversations, and also with professors that, intimidate you with their CVs and just how accomplished they are. And that sort of spills over into you wanting to do everything while you're at Harvard. We're only here for 2 or 3 years, or maybe 1 year, depending on the degree program. But yeah, I'm balancing sort of that, or I'm cautioning myself against sort of feeling like that I'm on limited time, and that I need to overperform and try to, make myself into something that I'm actually not. And so, of course, there are financial concerns like balancing work and school. And then, for me, particularly coming from West Memphis, Arkansas, in the South, to the city life, the housing market and everything here is very expensive. It's very volatile. And so I'm learning also to adult and sort of practice budgeting and things of that nature. So a lot of things are going on that I'm working with, and it's very exciting to learn from just others who are also who have done fairly with those things very well, and just to hear from professors who, are first gen. I've talked to professors who are first gen that understand your struggles, and students alike. And so yeah, I just like that we're supporting each other. And I think another thing that's really important for me in navigating all these things is just to embrace the small things, especially now that the leaves have turned in Massachusetts. Every time I go outside, it's a Kodak moment. I just I try to embrace the small things, and yeah, the opportunities that come with that. The bigger things, they're also great. But yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Actually, again, another great segue into our third question. So apart from adulting and appreciating the small things, what other advice would you have for prospective first-gen students thinking about HDS? Albert, let's start with you.
All right, I'll try. So I think, yeah, I mean, being first generation, and how the panelists have mentioned before, there is like the element of having to work a little harder and having to like beat the odds, and statistics that Ryan mentioned. I think part of that, or with that, I would say just really be confident in yourself. So if you applying in your application, yeah, just be confident in your application. If you end up at HDS or wherever you may end up, I would say, yeah, just kind of own it. Just be proud of yourself for where you are, and be confident that your background and that your research interests are interesting, and they're unique to you, because I mean, everyone can contribute something different and unique in their own way. So I think confidence is a big thing, especially like myself being, like all of us, but I guess speaking from my experience being first gen, you to kind of plow through the insecurities and things like that. I think, like, of course, being humble about it, but being confident that, it's like you're there for a reason, and they saw, admission saw something in you that that they think is valuable for the institution and valuable for the school. So I think, I sometimes I find myself reminding myself that, because till this day, I'm still just like, I don't know how or why I got in, but I'm here, they saw something. And so it really motivates me to kind of just like, it's like, all right, yeah, like in my application, I spoke about my interests, and this is like what I'm into, and it's interesting, like they think it's interesting. So I should too, and I should own up to it, because I think it's cool, so I think confidence is a big thing, kind of like what Ryan was mentioning as well, to kind of like savor the moment, because once the semester starts, you kind of things just move fast and you hit the ground running, and sometimes you don't fully take into account that you're at HDS or that you're in graduate school to begin with, something that our families and friends maybe didn't get a chance to do for whatever reason. So, and being that our time is short, 2 to 3 years, yeah, I mean, just savor it and really enjoy your time there, because it does go by fast, and it's just an immense opportunity.
Thank you, Albert. Aunt.
It's so funny because we just got here, really. I think like a lot of, maybe everyone on this call is a first year, but it does go really fast. Like we've been here for like 2 months and I'm already like, uh-oh, degree's almost over. So definitely resonate with that to savor the experiences. I think the 2 pieces of advice I would offer to anyone that is considering coming to HDS or to any graduate program as a first-gen student would be to just echo what Albert said, like be confident, but maybe, just like recognize that whoever you are and wherever you end up, like maybe you're lucky to be there, but they would be lucky to have you too. Like HDS is lucky to have my fellow panelists here at the school, like shaping the institution and questioning it and affirming it, all of those things. And so just thinking about what you have to offer, not in a you're a capitalist product way, not in that way, but in a sense that you can bring who you are and your experiences and the community that's built you and put that here into conversation with everybody else at HDS. And so that's really my second piece of advice, is just to figure out who your community is, who your family is, or who your chosen family is, and make those an integral part of your education, make those people a part of it. So I think that means building that community at HDS, like really prioritizing the relationships that you feel a spark with somebody. You're like, all right, I'm going to follow that because that's going to do something for my education. That's going to do something for all of us. And also just keeping grounded and in touch with your people wherever else they are, if it's not going to be in Cambridge or in Somerville, because I think that being reminded of who you're doing this work for and with, both on the ground physically at school, but also elsewhere, is probably the best way to motivate yourself through some of these times that are going to be not so picturesque and perfect in grad school.
Thank you, Aunt. Ryan.
Yeah, I stand with what was just said in terms of making those connections wherever you decide to matriculate, and really be deliberate about that. I actually want to shout out Tracy, one of the panelists, for leveraging Harvard's listserv capabilities. She created a first-year MDiv listserv. I know, like during the pandemic, it's kind of been sort of harder to connect besides inside the classroom, and so that speaks to the innovation that's kind of needed right now to meet fellow students. And through that, I've been able to meet with a student who I don't have any classes with, but who's in my class group, and he's actually a family medicine physician, and he's learned of my interest in faith-based medicine, things of that nature. And so many things can spawn from just being deliberate about your people. And so yeah, it's a lot of good things that come with just being deliberate and embracing community, and as many identities that you have here while at HDS or wherever you decide to matriculate.
Thank you. And Ryan, you are a segue master because you just referenced Tracy. And who's next? Tracy.
Thank you for that shout out, Ryan. So I have two pieces of advice. And the first would be about sort of how to prepare your people for this path. I have the perspective of having already been to grad school because I'm an attorney and I've been to law school. But for lots of people's families, and maybe especially for first gen folks' families, the practical, the predictable holds a lot of appeal, right? A lot of like security. So when I decided to go to law school, my family wasn't like, why would you do that? This was a self-evident path to them, and it had an expected outcome in terms of the career path, and there were certain socioeconomic consequences associated with that path. And so that was like not a tough, sell in terms of the support that I was getting from my family. This is a different path in terms of both like the predictability of what you're going to do. And I think that's true for MTS and MDiv folks, but maybe especially for MDiv folks, because there's not like this is the logical next step. We're all really forging very different paths. And there's so many different things that you can do with an MDiv degree, and so many different things that folks do with this degree. So that can have some unease, though, that there's not this, okay, here's what the next step is going to be. And then related, there's not like, a certain kind of economic outcome that's associated with the variety of those paths. And that can cause trepidation on the part of parents and families who are especially prize that kind of security and certainty, which my parents do and my family does. And they also, didn't know what divinity school was, and were like, explain this, especially because I'm a Buddhist and my family is not part of that tradition. It required some background. It required some conversations about what am I doing to sort of just get them on board and gain that support. So hopefully all of you are thinking about HDS right now are already having that conversation with yourself about what do I want to do here? What are the potential paths that I want to take? And that's good preparation for having those conversations with your people. And I'd suggest doing that, because I think it's really important as you go through this experience to have that support. And especially when you're navigating this, we're, I think, 3 of us in the midst of our very first semester, and it's a lot of transition, and it can be tough. And hopefully you can have the people, that you need to rely on there in your corner, so that you can go and be like, wow, this is really hard. And you're like, well, you wanted to do this wacky degree, so there you go. If you lay that foundation, hopefully you'll have that support around you. And related, my second piece of advice is just to prepare for a lot of like grace for yourself, a lot of compassion. This is a huge transition. I mean, especially for folks who are maybe not coming straight from undergrad, like myself, it's a wild transition back to school, and it has shook me. And it is also like geographically transitioning, leaving your community, leaving your friends, your family, really uprooting at a different time in your life. I didn't anticipate it. And I think the most important thing has been, one, to root in my practice, my spiritual practice. And luckily there's, so much support for that here. But just reminding myself that, you deserve a lot of compassion and grace. You're going to take some time to get your sea legs here, and that's okay. So be gentle with yourself.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I will add that as a first-gen student, Tracy, the way your parents reacted, that's exactly what happened with mine. My family, in essence, said, well, how are you going to eat with this degree? What's the practicality here, as opposed to a legal path or medical path, you name it. So definitely there's a lot more framing that needs to happen with loved ones, but it can be done, and it's definitely worth it. So, all right, those are the questions on my end. I want to highlight 2 questions. One that was actually previously sent to us prior to the event when the prospective students registered, and the one I see one in our Q&A. The first one that someone had asked is, in essence, hey, are there any official resources for first-gen students? How do you avail yourself of them? So are there any, I mean, we talked about the support network, we've talked about sort of the compassion, the way that people are invited, but are there any particular resources you've tapped that are geared towards first-gen students? Tracy, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Odds.
No, any of you, go ahead.
I'm not going to speak from experience because I haven't tapped this personally, but I actually just saw that it was like first gen day and there was an email and there was a whole organization. There were a lot of folks, I think most of them were undergrads, were highlighted that are part of the first gen union, which seems super cool. So it's definitely something that exists and is out there. And Odds touched on this a little bit at the beginning, just the awareness about first gen students. I mean, when I was an undergrad, I don't recall this being like an intelligible category. Obviously there were first gen students, but it wasn't something that like there was organization around or acknowledgement of necessarily. So it's really great that there is. And we apparently have a union and anyone who knows more about it can speak to it, but I know it's definitely there. There's a strong community.
Yes, to add to what Tracy said, I feel like I need to do more looking into what's there. I know that there's like a campus-wide organization that is putting out resources and doing events. And I think where I see like us being able to do things at HDS is like figuring out how to connect to that and also figuring out if there's things that we want like outside of that as well. And I found in my time at HDS, like Ryan mentioning like Tracy setting up the listserv or whatever else like people have started, like we've only been here for a couple of months, but it's been fairly easy to be like, this is a gap that I see. I'm interested in like collaborating with others to fill it. So if there's not like enough resource, or if there's just a different type of resource that we want to see, I trust that there are people in the community that'd be interested in making it happen. So yeah, I was thinking about for those like first gen events, actually, I was thinking about another first generation incoming student that I know. And it's just like, we should like put together like a little like thing of like, hey, we're going to this event. Does anyone want to go? You know, just so we can start building community around that identity at HDS, just because I think that there is a lot of support we can offer each other. Like I didn't even know about this identity for Tracy, for example, who is somebody I've interacted with already. So I think there's more to be done.
Thank you so much. Albert, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add real quick. Something that's been very helpful too is as incoming students, the student board, they set up a Slack channel for us, and that was very helpful too. I had people reach out to me from there. Another student that was from Mexico, Jorge, he reached out to me, and we were able to connect. And so there are like little things like that as well. I'll also quickly just add a plug. I've taken advantage of the BTI and taking courses, across schools and stuff like that. And I'm taking a course at BU, and there you meet other students, and so it's just like, I would say BTI is another great way to just meet other students outside of HDS that are also first gen or underrepresented students as well.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm mindful of the time, but I also want to make sure we ask this question of you. So if you wouldn't mind jumping in, and it's something actually that Odds you already started alluding to. The question is, if again, first gen students that come from low socioeconomic setting often have to work, as you mentioned. So if one does have to work, how many hours of work per week do you think it's appropriate given the academic load? And I will also add, is it easy to find work? So quick answers. What would you say?
Quick answer from me is that I am working 15 hours a week and I find it to be a bit much. Ideally, I'd be working 10 to 12. So that's something I'm going to try to work out for the future. But I think it's different for everyone. For me, 15 was too much. For other people, maybe it's just right. I wouldn't say more than 15. I don't know anybody that's working more than 15 hours that likes it. And is it easy to find work on campus? Yeah, definitely. I didn't think that it would be. So that was part of the reason I came in with a job. But actually, there's been lots of jobs advertised on campus that I've been like, I would do that if I didn't already have a job. So yes, in my experience, yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Albert.
Yeah, I mean, so I haven't been working in the last like 3 months, and that's been a little stressful. But coming in, before. I've worked a bunch before the semester started and saved up a lot of money. But also another plug is just to really to submit a FAFSA, and really fill out those if first gen, need based, really fill those out. To me, if it weren't for the help that I'm getting from HDS, I wouldn't be here, in terms of financial help. So I would definitely say take advantage of that, really give it a shot and just go for it.
It is pretty good. 90% of students receive aid. So we're very lucky in that regard. Tracy, Ryan, anything you'd like to add? Ryan?
Oh, yeah, I can add. So like, with regard to plugs, we receive like a lot of emails from HDS, and I just encourage you to, should you matriculate here, really look at the many layered opportunities that aren't only in theology, but are in like other avenues of disciplinary fields. And a lot of those emails come with jobs and other opportunities to really look at. And people will put you on, if you have other friends. And I know, like, for me, I have a fellow first gen ally who's an upper class person who has really helped me sort of seek out those opportunities and know who to go to. So the emails are really helpful.
Thank you. Tracy?
I will just echo, the emails are amazing. There's something like absurdly charming about the newsletter culture of HDS. Like, we get the cutest newsletters, and the Office of Student Life and the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life does an amazing job of gathering resources, both within HDS, within the broader like BTI community, and within the broader Boston area community, and highlighting not just like jobs that are available, but what grads and alums are doing. And so I think that there's a lot of ways to connect with work, and then folks who might have work that you'd be interested in, both while you're at HDS and after.
Thank you. Well, friends, we're out of time. So those of you who attended from wherever you might be, I hope you're all well. Please join me in thanking Albert, Odds, Tracy, and Ryan. You're all wonderful. Thank you for the wisdom that you share with us, and also just be so transparent as well, and all the advice you provided. I wish you all well. Have a great evening, and thank you. And if you choose to apply, can't wait to read your application. Take care. Bye.